as you can see, is probably the smallest venue around, and it's entirely enclosed, which means that it gets crowded the fastest, and which means it becomes very difficult for people to leave. And sometimes we do have emergencies which require people to enter and exit the venue. So I would like to request everybody to enter the venue from my right-hand side and to exit from my left. That's entry from your left and exit from your right. If we can keep those aisles free, it will make the experience much better for you and much easier for us. Yeah, thank you. And lastly, about mobile phones, please, please, please keep your mobile phones on silent. Not only is it a disturbance to the authors, but these days there's a new Samsung ringtone going around that sounds like a whistle, and it can make it extremely awkward for sitting in front of you because you never know what they're thinking. So kindly keep your phones on silent, and yes, that's all, and we'll start the next session in another 5-10 minutes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Mahindra Humanities Center, Darbar Hall. Our next session is called The Hunting Dogs, which is Jørn Lier Horst in conversation with Kishwar Desai. This is a part of the Crime and Punishment series, and it's presented by the Mahindra Humanities Center. So without further ado, I would like to invite Kishwar and Jørn on stage, and I'm going to give over the mic to Kishwar to begin proceedings.
Sure. Okay. Further up?
Yeah, I think closer.
Closer?
Thank you.
Okay, good morning everyone. It gives me great pleasure to invite you to this session, The Hunting Dogs, with an extremely well-known writer of crime fiction from Norway, Jørn Horst. And what is really exciting for us is because he won last year's Best Crime Novel Award, which was given by the Nordic Crime Writers Association. So a big round of applause to him. He's here with us, and so a big thrill. And hopefully we'll have an exciting session, which crime writing always involves. He's also a former policeman, and so he brings to this whole genre of crime writing, to which I also belong, a great sense of knowledge, of background experience, and therefore that will make this session much more interesting, because unlike those of us who write in, who profess to be crime novelists but don't actually have a hands-on experience of what it takes to be looking at a case in a more forensic fashion, Jørn brings all that knowledge and experience to this genre. He's been writing from 2004 onwards. And so my first question, of course, to you, Jørn, is what made you turn to putting those experiences of yours into books, and what kind of an effect did it have upon you?
You're asking me what made me a writer?
Yes, yes.
And that is, well, that's actually been a quite far journey. It's been a far journey from...
Little louder, please.
It's been a far journey from Norway here to Jaipur as well. And it's somehow strange to be here, because my mother, she used to work, she was washing at the school, the floors at the school, and my father was a bus driver.
Bus driver, okay.
I wouldn't say I come from a poor family, but there never was a lack of...
I think a little louder. Yeah, you just have to maybe hold the mic up or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
There we are. I was beginning to tell you this long story, becoming a crime writer and ending up here in Jaipur. And I think it started by reading, because what we always had a lot of in my home was books. So I've always been reading. And then until one evening in 2000, and actually it was the 4th of September 2002.
Oh, he even remembers the date, 4th of September. Can you tell us the time?
Well, it was late at night, because I was laying in bed reading a crime novel. And when I finished it, I thought that this novel was awful. Oh. It was terrible. So I threw it into the wall, and I said to my wife laying beside me that I can do this better myself. And then she told me that you better do that then. And okay, we turned out the light, and I was lying without being able to sleep. And then I went up. And
a little louder, I think.
I went up from bed and sat down by my computer and started to write a crime novel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So immediately, I mean, the thoughts started flowing all at once.
Yeah, but what I did then was to write a story about a true murder, a true case, because that always have a big impact on me and my life, because on the first day at work as a police officer, that was the very first day, the very day that a 71-year-old man was found brutally murdered in his house in my hometown, not far away from where I'm living. And my first task as a police officer was to enter that crime scene. And that was a very special feeling for me as a young policeman for the first time, to go over that doorstep, knowing that I was following the footsteps of a real murderer. That was an intense experience to knowing that I am where I am now, the murder has just been.
Oh.
So when I should write my first crime novel, it was based on this true murder story. And until today, this is an unsolved murder story.
Right.
You have to read my novel to get the solution.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there are a lot of, and that novel was called The Key Witness. Is
Yes,
that your first novel? Well, obviously it created enough of a sensation, and it led to you writing many more books.
Yes.
But how important do you think that experience of real life, being a police officer, actually experiencing the sense of a murder having taken place, as you said, you're crossing the threshold and you're kind of trying to walk in the footsteps of a murderer to just sort of unravel the mystery and the reasons and the motivations why he did it. Did you feel that at any time, did you feel that you were actually having to rely on a bit of fiction as well, because you needed to get into the mind of the murderer, or were you keeping yourself strictly to the facts?
Well, I'm always in the mind of the policeman in stories, but you know, part of this job is going on behind, inside the crime scenes, behind the police barricades, where I for many years have seen what brutal crimes does and what is leaves behind. And it also have been my task for many years to talk to people who are the victims of such brutal crimes. Many times, often the people who are left behind in murder cases. And it's also have been my task for many years to talk to the people who have committed these crimes, to interview the murderers, the killers. And that is an experience that brings somehow an authentic nerve into my novels, who I believe is hard to come up with if you haven't been there, if you haven't seen it, and if you haven't done it. So that is
an authenticity which...
Yeah, and that is the strength
of your novels.
Yes.
So you said to get into the mind of a murderer or somebody who's actually committed a crime. And for most of us, that's a very difficult thing to do. The kind of villains or the kind of people, therefore, who commit these crimes, what sort of people are there? We'll come to your main character a little later, but what kind of people are these villains? And because yesterday we had a session in this very room which was to do with crime novels which are being written about Asian characters, and most of them are to do with greed, financial greed. How do you make money? How do you get rich quick? And that seems to be the driving factor for a lot of crime novels coming out of India. Mine are to do with issues of social justice. My crime novels are a different kind. So what kind of murderers do you portray, or what kind of criminals do you portray in your crime novels?
Well, my experience is that the motive can be almost anything. It can be anything, but there is greed, there is revenge, there is jealousy, there is anger, and the thing is that all those feelings are feelings that I can recognize. I can feel angry. I can feel greedy as well. I can feel jealous. I can feel that I need some kind of revenge. And that is the interesting thing, because what makes them murderers? They have the same feelings as I am. So what makes them go over the line, crossing the line, and became murderers? And that was what is something that I like to somehow investigate in my stories. What makes people become murderers? I'm not so interested in who did it. It's more why was this crime committed?
What was the motivational factor? The person you have in who is your chief inspector, William Wisting, unlike most, you have a detective at the heart of most crime novels, and since you've done a series, we can talk about that a bit, because most of these guys are usually very eccentric. They've got some kind of a problem. They've got some kind of a kink. Normally, in most crime novels. But your character is very different. He's very disciplined, and you made him like that for a reason. Could you tell us that?
Yes, as I told earlier, I always been reading, and when I sat down myself, I read so many crime novels with policemen going around all by themselves and solving crimes when being drunk.
Yeah, yes, being drunk. Drinking is very important.
Waking up next morning and rubbing their beer, and then the whiskey bottle is on the night shelf or in the office table. I didn't want my investigator to be like that. I wanted a man in the role here who was more like the policeman that I know from my work, and there is not that many drunk policemen.
There are not too many drunkards.
No.
Okay.
But there is a reason why there are all these special characters, and that is it's easier to let the reader be interested in the character when he has some character lack. Then I have to put more offer into the plot by itself to make the stories interesting.
So you feel yours are more plot-driven novels rather than character-driven novels, even though it has this very disciplined character. Maybe something like you. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
It's partly autobiographical, the novels that you write?
That would be to brag about myself, because...
Go ahead. You're amongst friends. You can say, I'm exactly like that. I'm as good as him, if not better.
No, but I see many of course, many of my thoughts about the issues in the stories also became William Wisting's issues. So there is a lot of him, there's a lot of me in him. But there's a more part of my late father-in-law, who also was a police chief.
Your father-in-law was also a police officer.
I think I have stolen more from him and how he was as a policeman.
So you've committed a crime by stealing from his character, your father-in-law's character. I hope your wife was okay with that.
My mother-in-law is okay with that, and my wife as well, yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. The other thing, of course, is with all crime novels, is that you do tend to think about a society which is coming out. You've all heard of Nordic noir and how much the Scandinavian authors are doing so well all over the world. And who hasn't heard of you, of course, Joe Nesbo, Stieg Larsson, and people like that. So we all are amazed at how successful Nordic noir is doing. And yet when we were speaking earlier, you said there are only 35 murders, if that take place every year.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there is. In Norway, there are 5 million people living in Norway.
Yeah. And you said you've killed more people in your novels
I have.
than actual murders take place.
Yes.
So why is there so much of this literature coming out from these countries? And why is it so successful?
Yeah, you tell me. No, and it's actually hard to tell, but it's been there for quite a long time, to be honest. This Scandinavian way of writing, which seems to be popular throughout the world, it started almost 50 years ago.
50 years?
In the mid-60s, when the Swedish couple called Kishwar Desai was writing a series of 10 books with the police inspector Martin Beck as the main character. And then Henning Mankell appeared.
Mankell, of course, yes.
And he was writing in the same tradition, with this having a social issue that he wanted to discuss in his novels. And then, of course, the Millennium Trilogy with Stieg Larsson was a tremendous success throughout the world. And today, the leading Nordic crime writer is Jo Nesbø, I believe,
Yeah, Jo Nesbø.
from Norway. But exactly what made this so popular, it's hard to tell. But in this country with only 5 million people, it is someone called these stories "murders in paradise" because because our society are really they are quiet. They are. And there are not that many greedy people because everyone seems to have what they need.
So it's a society which believes in social welfare,
Yeah.
and yet you talk about social injustice in your
Yes,
books.
yes, yes.
So that's a paradox.
That's the paradox. And I think that also these brutal endings described in the novels, that is the opposite of what the society looks like. And that is something that affects readers, I believe.
Yeah. So why would you, what is the formula, you know? What makes these books so successful to outside? I can understand that there is a lot of interest within Norway. I mean, you're living in a very, very wonderful, as you said, murder in paradise, a society that doesn't have any real social issues in the sense that India has, for example. And yet those books are very popular then. Why are they so popular abroad as well?
Well, again, you tell me, but
Okay.
it might
You're
has,
not going to give us the formula. Okay.
it might have something to do with the writers.
Ah, the good writing, yes. How many of you have read Nordic noir or Scandinavian?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's quite a few hands going up. So, but for you, the real life examples, I mean, even given the fact that the crime rate seems very, very small in Norway, yet there are enough real life examples for you to have dwelt upon those in your book. Because like you said, even in an earlier interview, you said somewhere that in 1997, when you were, you know, actually confronted by a gun, by somebody holding a gun, and that is a...
Yeah, let me first tell you that it is only in the first novel, The Key Witness, where I use a true murder story in my novel. But the issues are always there from real crime and into my novels. And this is one example. By coincidence, I was driving the police patrol car. This is one of my early years at the police force. I was driving down the street, and outside the bank office, there was a van standing with the engine running. And in front of the bank, there was this man standing in his black suit with a rubber head and a machine gun in his hands. So the bank was actually being robbed when I was arriving with my police car. And I stopped the car, and then what happened was that almost what you can read about, we were staring at each other, this man standing there with this ice-cold black eyes looking at me.
Okay, he's wearing a mask.
Yeah,
or something.
wearing a mask. And then he raised this gun, and I was okay, nodding and telling him I will sit right here. And then they were leaving in their cars, and then what happened was what you don't read about that much, but what you see on the movies. There was a car chase, and during that car chase, they were firing at my patrol car, and one of the bullets was going right between my ears. Bullet, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I've never written about that story, but that experience, that to be pointing a gun at and to be shot at, that is also an example from my experience at police work that make the novels more authentic, I believe. because there is not that many crime writers that have been shot at, I imagine.
A lot of people do enjoy crime novels when they have a lot of police procedure and background material, you know, the forensics of it.
Yeah.
We don't have too much of those kind of novels in India because unfortunately here the understanding is that most of the time we're talking about police corruption. So the detective is usually outside from the police force. Even if he comes from the police force, he's usually a renegade kind of character, a character who's gone a little astray, and his so-called superiors don't want him to do a particular case, but he makes himself do it. And usually it ends with, a spray of bullets or something. You don't find so much about police procedure, but is that very much part of your book and the kind of writing?
It is, and that what you're telling now about this hard-boiled detective stories, that is probably something that is different with the Nordic noir crimes. There are not that many car chases or gun situations. I also have actually written books for the police academy on crime science. So it is a big part of my novels, but you have to, you can't be too complicated, because my mother, she is 74, she's reading those novels as well. So you can't have too much, I can't have too much procedure. No.
You also write for children?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Crime novels for children, I do. Yeah.
You do detective novels for them?
Novels, yes.
That's a very interesting thing. Apparently, a lot of these, including your Nesbo, I think he also writes for children as well as for adults. And that is the interesting thing about all of the Scandinavian writers, is that they do both for adults and...
But for me it was, I think that many writers who have been successful, they might feel that they want to bring something back to what made them became writers.
Okay.
And for me it was reading, it started with reading children's books. So when that was my motivation, to write something that I would have liked to read when I was a kid.
Well, there's a lot of readers in Norway. I mean, for a small country, your books have been selling a lot. They go into many. 160,000 was what your last novel sold, and that's only in Norway. So probably, so is it the long winter evenings that make people read and write so much?
That might be. There's my wife called yesterday. Then there had almost a meter snow. She was angry with me being here, because that is usually my task, to shovel this snow away from the
snow
in front of a house. The snow, yes.
Yeah.
So she was a bit angry with me, for she had to do that job yesterday. 1 meter snow last night. So she was sitting in her chair in front of the fireplace reading a novel. Quite a lot of people are doing that wintertime in Norway. Yes.
With crime novels.
And
now to talk about the discipline of writing, because you've given up your job as a police officer and you become a full-time novelist. That's wonderful. But that's a recent decision. What made you take that decision, and can you tell us something about how you write?
Well, the decision was that there was no more time for doing both things. I couldn't traveling to Jaipur and at the same time being a police officer. I couldn't find time to both. So this autumn I left the police force.
You left the police force because you wanted to come to Jaipur?
No. To find time to read and to find time to meet, to find time to write and find time to meet the readers.
Yeah.
Before I left the police force, I was going up at 5 in the morning, writing for 2 hours until the rest of the house was getting up. and then go to work, and then maybe have a session in the evening. Today this is my job, so I'm going to another office, not the police office, but another office.
Oh, so you've got an office where you write?
Yes.
Okay, so you still keep
downtown.
up that. Oh, that's interesting.
From 8 in the morning to 4 in the evening, right?
Okay, so instead of chasing real life, criminals, you're doing it all in your head now.
Yeah, and the thing is, you always solve the cases in this.
That's really fascinating. Because so you're bringing a certain discipline which you learned in the police force
Absolutely.
into your writing. Most of us writers, I have to confess, write anywhere we can. We write on the kitchen table, we write in the... Nobody is as disciplined as you have made yourself become, but that is a good way to write, and that is the reason probably you have been able to write almost a book a year.
Yes, I think so. And I'm pretty much doing the same thing that when I was working in the police, knowing what to do when, and so I actually write my books in Excel. You know Excel?
Yes, we do know Excel. Yes.
Before I write them in Word, but because Excel have all those columns.
Yeah.
And then I made one column for each chapter.
Oh my God, okay, that's really disciplined.
This is the formula.
That's a formula.
Yeah.
And then you total it all up at the end and you say, okay, because Excel is usually used for accounting purposes.
Yes.
And you use it for writing.
Yes, I have some words in this column, what's going on in the first chapter, and so on for all chapters through the book, and the solution in the end.
So you do actually do the entire plot line before you get into the novel?
Yes.
Okay.
But
But
it almost never ends up in the way I thought in the beginning. So I don't know if the plot line actually
so what do you
helps
do with
me.
that Excel sheet at the end of it? It's just...
Oh, it's very helpful. It is... but for me, it's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. You know, the other day I met an Indian crime writer, and he said that what makes a crime novel exciting is you have to have all these edge-of-the-seat excitement and all that. But he said you also have to have a murder in the first 5 pages, that was his formula, and a twist in the last 3 pages. So I don't know whether you have any such indication of how you write. In the Excel sheets.
Yeah, the Excel sheets. I have one thing about how I write, and that is that I always try to write in a different way next time. Try to do something different.
Yeah.
But I also have a friend, and he had another formula, and he told me you must never kill anybody before page 20.
Okay.
And the reason was that the reader has to get to know what is coming to be a victim. So when the murder appears on page 20 or later, then you suffer with the reader.
And so you feel bad for him. Oh, he shouldn't have died. You know.
And that became a motive to read. For you want to know what happened to this person that you got to know during the first 20 pages.
Turning to the Hunting Dogs, you know, which is the book which is now coming out. Can you give us sort of a short, you won't give the game away and you will not tell the whole plot, but if you can just describe what is the crime at the heart of this novel and something about why you're writing it.
There are no dogs in the story.
There no?
No hunting, no dogs at
dogs.
all. No.
Okay, let's get that out of the way. No dogs. Okay.
Well, in fact, in this story, we have to go 17 years back in time, when William Wisting was the lead investigator in a murder case. And the job he did, a man was convicted for his murder.
A man
17 years ago. But now today, the sentence is done. He's a free man, and the first thing he does is to find evidence for that. The evidence the police used against him was
fabricated.
Fabricated. Yes.
Okay.
Wisting was the head of the investigation that time. And so this became his responsibility. So he is suspended from work.
Oh, I see.
And has to try from some place outside the police force to figure out not only just what happened, but who is the real murderer.
Yeah, so his own reputation is at stake. Wisting's reputation is at stake. He has to prove that the case was not fabricated, and this guy did whatever he was supposed to have done. Okay.
And as we were talking earlier, that my experience from real police work is bringing an authentic nerve into the stories. And in this story, maybe I'm using a more personal experience and somehow painful experience from the police work. For I also have, a couple of years ago, I have these allegations against myself.
Were you suspended from the police force?
No, I wasn't suspended, but I have this internal investigation against me. And that was somewhat strange to have been an investigator for quite a lot of years, and now being the person who are being investigated.
Right.
That was a strange feeling, and that is also what Wisting is feeling in this story, The Hunting Dogs.
So you are also combining your own personal, as you said, not only the autobiographical experience of having been a police officer, but also being a police officer who's been accused of possibly doing something wrong.
I didn't do it.
And didn't do it, okay. All right, we'll have to read the book and find out.
But The Hunting Dogs I made up that phrase in this novel. The Hunting Dogs is what the police became when they are having this big investigation rolling.
Right.
Yeah.
But also makes you feel very isolated as an individual, I imagine.
Yes, but what happens in these big investigations is that the police are getting no answers, no solutions. They're becoming desperate. And then this one little thing appears, one name, one familiar name perhaps. Someone has done something before. And in that glimpse, in that moment that this thing appears, this is no longer a big investigation, then it's
they narrow down to that.
Narrow down to one trace. The police are becoming hunting dogs, following only that track. All other solutions are, from that moment, they can't see any other solutions, and that theory they have made themselves. So the rest of the investigation is to confirm that theory is right.
Well, sounds very exciting, and we look forward to it being translated into English, perhaps sometime.
It is. It's out in May, I believe.
In May, okay. We are also launching the Crime Writers Association of South Asia, of which we are hoping we will invite people, and you will be one of the authors who will come and speak to us, which will be sometime in September. We'll do a festival of crime writing. Now I'm going to throw this open to the audience because I'm sure there are lots of questions. Yes?
I wanted to know if there are, welcome to India first.
Thank you.
Secondly, I wanted to know if there are any differences between Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish writing. And can you tell us a little about the writer Indridason? Indridason. There's a Finnish writer called Indridason.
Yeah.
Is the spelling? What is the spelling of the name?
IND something.
Something. Okay.
INDRIADSON.
Okay.
Arnaldur Indridason. Yeah, Icelandic writer.
Icelandic.
Arnaldur Indridason. Yeah, good friend of mine. Well, these are the Nordic countries, right? And I think there are the Nordic writers have a lot in common, and we all have the same winter darkness and the midnight sun. I don't know if that is why these novels are
so popular.
Yeah, but we all write in very different ways in the Nordic countries as well. So this tag Nordic noir.
It's a bit annoying because
Yeah,
you're
actually
all
it is.
put in the same basket, as it were.
Yes, the
Yeah.
same basket, but we are very different writers. Yes.
Okay, you still haven't answered that.
Yeah, Arnold Rindidason. He follows up this Nordic tradition in crime writing. So I feel somehow familiar in his style of writing, and so I know Henning Bankel does.
You feel they follow a particular tradition and yours is a little different.
No, I think this is quite much the same.
It's
but
quite
you
much
know Iceland, where Indidason is coming from, they only have 2 murders each year.
That's amazing. Yes, please. Just take the mic here.
You talked about the murderers you interviewed and how you felt that, you had the same feelings they did,
Yeah.
and what was the thing that made them go over the edge. And I wonder, did you ever feel sympathy with whatever it was that, with the person who did go over the edge? Or did you feel that they were quite separate from you?
I don't think I've ever felt sympathy, but I can feel, I can understand why things happened and why things became what they came. But, I met people that I don't want to do handshake when I'm meeting them, but I do. And what I feel is not a part of the investigation. You have I'm lost for words. But
do you
the simple
find
answer is that I
I think
never
essentially what she's saying is that do you find that when you get into the mind of a criminal, do you understand the motivations and then you feel, perhaps if I was in his place, I would have done the same thing?
Yes, that is the scary thing, that we might all become murderers.
Yeah, we could very easily go over the edge.
If not very easily, it might happen.
It might happen. So you do find there is a very thin line which divides the person who breaks the law and the one who abides by it.
And that is, that might be through all my authorship, that there is a very thin line between us, the good people, and them.
Right, yeah. So therefore, but for the grace of God go I is like a feeling that you get when you're writing these kind of books, that where you're also depicting a criminal mind?
No.
No. You're very firmly on the side of the good guys.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay. So do you think the moral issue is important and is an imperative when you're writing crime novels, that there has to be a moral at the end of it? We're talking, this is a part of a series called Crime and Punishment. And we know that the famous novel was about the stealing of a piece of bread, and then the man is tortured throughout his life, and that's what the original novel was about, Crime and Punishment. But do you find that that is something that...
That is something with the Nordic crime novels, that you have to think while reading. That it is not just for the joy of it. I like to leave my readers with some disorder, with some thoughts in their minds after read my novels.
Okay. Any more questions? Yes, please. Yes. Oh, sorry. 1 second. Can we just go there? Yeah.
I just want to know if crime writing has anything to do with the catharsis of Aristotelian concept.
Sorry, crime writing has anything to do with?
Catharsis, Aristotelian concept of tragedy. Every crime writing is a tragedy.
Is a tragedy.
And, is it anyway concerned to the catharsis? Can you relate it?
Catharsis, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is
so
Aristotelian concept.
you're saying that every Every novel, every story that deals with a crime is really a tragedy. It is normally there are no such things as happy endings in crime novels. It's usually a tragedy. It's a sad story.
It's a sad story. Yes, that. And in that aspect, crime writing is nothing new. That was what the Greeks were doing thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
The Greek tragedies.
They're the Greek tragedies, that's right.
But that is that is right. There is nothing, no such thing as a good ending in a crime novel.
Because I think they also deal with social issues, like you said. So what we are doing is writing about contemporary society. Most crime novels deal with contemporary societies, the ills of contemporary societies, which make people tip over, go over the edge. So by nature, there has to be a tragedy at the heart of it. Every crime is, in a sense, a tragedy.
Well, and the tragedy is that when you unfold the book, when you finish the book, well knowing that this was just a story that someone made up, you are left with the thoughts that this might happen in real life, and it might happen to you.
It might happen. Even if there are only 35 murders, all of them could happen. Okay, sorry, yes, please, can we hear here?
To follow up on the crime and punishment theme, from your real life, from your life as a cop, there's a cliche of the criminal who want the feeling of guilt and shame, wants to confess. Is that true? Did you find that the criminals that you tracked down often had that desire to confess and unload, be caught?
Or they want to be caught. Every criminal wants to be caught. The series, okay.
I think I can assure you that they don't.
So you have to be very clever.
And no, they don't. And the interesting thing, if is the punishment helping them? Are they becoming better persons after the punishment? That is the interesting issue, and they don't.
Oh, the punishment.
No, 80% of those who are in prison in Norway have been there before, even though the prisons have program that shall make you don't come back. They keep coming back.
So there's no reformation?
That does not account for murder, I believe. Those who commit murders, they are not doing that again. But thefts and all sorts of things, they're ending up back in prison again and again.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions? Yes, please. Yeah.
Since you mentioned about the morality of a crime, my question is about the morality of the investigation. That while writing a crime fiction, how much latitude do you provide to the investigator to deviate from the official procedure in the cultural setting you write or in any cultural setting per se?
There's some strange feedback from the...
Okay. So what he's saying is that you allow the investigating team a certain amount of leeway to go away from the procedure that they should have followed. And is there a sort of a morality question for the investigators as well?
In this novel, The Hunting Dogs, but in this novel, The Hunting Dogs, my lead investigator, he operates outside the law. He is doing something that he's not allowed to. And that is the most popular novel I've ever written.
Okay.
So I think I will let them do that again. I think I will let them go.
In future as well?
In future as well.
Okay, so you'll allow them to break the law.
But I don't know if that was answer to your question.
So the idea, I think it's something which is a bit of a gray area for most crime novelists, including myself, that when somebody is investigating, Should they be allowed that leeway? Should they be able to slightly break the law in their investigative procedures? You know, things that you shouldn't, and this does happen, because even my detective, you know, who's a social worker come detective, she sometimes does things which would not be strictly legal, but when she wants to get to the heart of the crime, she thinks this is the only way she can do it. So yes, crime novelists do allow their lead characters also to be sometimes a little less than perfect.
And I have done that once, and
Yeah.
I will do it again.
Yeah, you will go down. That just makes the characters also much more interesting. I think adding shades of gray always makes your character more appealing for the reader as well, because then they become normal and human rather than these superhuman beings who have all the answers and know everything. Can we, any more questions anywhere? Yeah, right at the back there.
So did you feel when you were a policeman as well as a novelist that being a novelist affected your relationship with your police colleagues in any way, that, you know, they were tentative around you, that anything that they might see or do in a crime scene might end up in a book someday?
I didn't understand.
Can you just repeat your question again, please?
It's hard to hear the questions. I don't know if
The feedback. You're saying that did his colleagues also
The question is, did it affect your relationship with your
With
other
your
police
colleagues?
colleagues? Did you feel that, you know, did they feel that anything they say or do in a crime scenario might end up in a book someday?
That's a good question. and this comes up when we have this Christmas party at the police station. Late in night, they approach me and are telling me that I do know who you really writes about. But me being a police officer and a crime writer had more influence on the criminals.
on the criminals?
On the criminals who are sometimes been approaching me, confessing things. Just.
They want a bit of advice from you?
No, but I think I don't know. There was this guy who thought it was cool to come to me, the crime writer, and confess things he had done. It turned
because he wants you to put him in a book. Is that what?
Yeah, I don't know his motive, or it was because I was famous as a crime writer or something. But the thing is that his confessions were false. So.
How did you know that?
No, we experienced it after a while. That.
Okay, he was just making it up so that he could be a character in your book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, at the back, that young lady there.
I wanted to ask, please, why are we, the good people, so fascinated by the crime novels, and why do we love them so much, and our heart leaps up when we see the newest book on the shelf? Are these crime novels sort of, are we through them acting out our own dark side and getting rid of it and without the consequences? And the detective who, it's amazing. I mean, on our TV at home, we have all the detectives who break the traditional way of solving the crime. They're always castigated by their superiors, which is crazy because they always solve the case. Is that also acting out something for us? Because the good guy, the detective, is being, he's behaving in a criminal sort of way, slightly criminal way. And we, after all, we good people, we live in such a conventional way, following all the rules, and we enjoy seeing the detective doing it for us and getting away with it and getting praise in the end.
Right. So you got that question?
Yeah, the short version was, why are we reading crime? Yeah.
Why do we read crime?
Yeah.
And is there something within us that, you know, responds well to that?
And that has been a mystery for me also quite a
Sorry?
time. That have been a mystery for me. Why are we reading crimes?
Okay.
And everyone seems to do it. And I have always sometimes felt when I was working in the police force, on one side I met people that were victims of such crimes that I was writing about for entertainment. That was somehow hard for me to cope with, that these people who have are victims to crimes, knowing that I was writing crime novels as entertainment. So I had to ask, there is this guy, his daughter was murdered 14 years ago. And each year on the day of this murder, I visit him and his wife. And I said to him, what do you think about me writing these crime novels to entertain people with murder when we had your own daughter murdered? And then he became quiet and he said to me that I do have all your novels on my shelves.
Oh.
And there they were, all my novels inside this house. And he was telling me what almost every people are telling, that he read crime novels when he didn't want to think about anything else, just to relax on the couch. And when he opened this novel, he was well knowing that in the end of this story, justice will be done.
Yeah, yeah.
That isn't always happens in true life.
In real life.
No. And also that in this novel there will detective, a good guy, will enter the story, and he will made order out of chaos. And I think that has an appeal to a lot of people in a chaotic everyday.
Yeah.
That in this novel, a good guy will sort it all out, and justice will be done.
No, I think that's a very important point, and that is a point why so much of crime writing is also now taking place in India. You know, because we are moving from a very chaotic sense of the way criminality was approached in the past, where you could never get justice, to a system where we are all demanding more and more accountability. And, you know, we are demanding that the police should be accountable, the justice system, whether they are or they're not, but at least we are forcing them to become more transparent in the procedures, in the way they look at crime. And that is why I think the crime novels from India are also now, and from South Asia, they used to be written in the past, but they used to be written as whodunits, you know, like a murder mystery, and somebody goes out and sorts it out. Now they're being done with more of a sense of the contemporary issues. And I think that's what you said as well, that in your books as well, you look at issues of social justice. And it's not just who done it, but why did they do it? And what is it that lies behind, you know. And I think that is also a sense of, I always feel that crime novels bring to you a sense of contemporary history, you know, to them. And that is also very, a very important thing when you read it. You see the way that country actually is in the crime novel. Anyone else? Yes, there, please.
First of all, I would like
And
to...
we can't hear you. Yeah. Little louder? Yeah, no.
First of all, I would like to tell you that, you know, I'm very
Louder,
humble.
please.
I'm very humbled to be in your presence. So both of you. And my question is that the victims you were talking about, you know, a lot of time when there is a crime, the victim, they feel a lot of pain, right? And as a policeman, you must have encountered a lot of occasions when you were talking to the victims and you are trying to consolidate them.
Trying to?
Consolidate them.
Console them, yeah.
Console them. So, do you feel that pain yourself anytime? Or would you like your characters to feel that pain? Or, you know, get through the emotional injustice that has been happened to them?
So
basically dealing with the pain.
Yeah, how much do you dwell
Or
on the pain of the victims? I mean, is that an important part of
Or
your
do
novel?
you feel that the policeman should be a stoic? Stoicism doesn't feel emotions.
Okay. He should be stoic, or do you feel the police officer should just stay away, not be affected by the pain of the victim? Both in your personal experience as well as your and the novel.
It's hard to. Now I'm talking as a policeman. It's hard to not feel with the victims, and in such a small community as small, almost 50,000 people in in the city where I was working, and quite often you know the people who are involved. And I think maybe I don't know the Indian police at all, but I think
I don't think you want to know.
No,
them.
but I think that in the Nordic countries, the work of the police is not only to solve the crimes, to get the people who have done it and punish them. It's also to help the people who are victims to crime.
And that is an important part of your book as well, is that the victim
Yes,
of
and
the crimes are also equally dwelt upon as much as the plot and as much as the criminal behind it.
Yes, and every time there is a murder or a violent crime in Norway, the people who are the victims, they have one police officer to contact, who always going to be in touch with them. So that is something who is in every investigations. We have to take care of the victims.
Yeah, okay. So that's part of your personal. Okay, we have time for just one last question, please. Okay, shall we take that lady there? Yeah, sorry.
Hello, you talked about being investigated.
Can you hold it a little closer?
You talked about being investigated. So when you were being investigated, did you, being an investigator, try and follow the investigation or, think about how they must be progressing?
When he was being investigated,
yeah.
Did he try and find out?
Try and figure it out on his own as an investigator, how they are progressing or
So
what path they must be taking mentally.
Okay.
So you're following them
Yes.
as well as doing your own investigation. You're trying to stay 2 steps ahead of the investigators.
No, I didn't, because for me it was so obviously that the allegations against myself was totally wrong. So I just have to lean back and wait for the whole thing to go over. This is actually a very long story involving one of the biggest blackmailing stories in Norway. Too long to tell you tonight. Read all about it.
Okay, so I think read about it in his book, and I now would like to thank everybody for being here with us for this session. And do remember that we are launching the Crime Writers Association of South Asia, where you will be there as well, and that is day after on Monday. And we do hope to see more interest in crime writing in India as well. So thank you so much. Thank you.